Good evening. Thank you all for joining another episode of America in Black and White. My name is Charles King, and today we have a wonderful guest that's going to have a lot of information that's going to be good for us in the general public. Our guest is Mr. Anthony Collier. He's the director of criminal justice for the National Urban League. He previously served as general counsel to the dean of Texas Senate and as general counsel to the Texas Senate Committee on Criminal Justice. He also served as legislative director for the current chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus. Anthony graduated from the University of Texas School of Law in Austin, serving as the student body president, the class of 2022 Raleigh White Public Service Scholar, and 54th chairman and CEO of the National Black Law Students Association. In addition to receiving his Juris Doctorate, Anthony studied law and economics at Cairo University in Egypt as Rotary International Global Grant Scholar and graduated magna cum laude from Texas Southern University with a BA in political science. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Anthony Collier.
Hey, how's it going, Mr. King?
Great. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man.
I'm really happy to have you on the show today. Our public, especially for the communities in which we serve, just need to hear some things that you guys are doing and what you're doing here at the Urban League. And so I'd like to start off by, if you get a chance, you got a chance, if you can introduce yourself to the people and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Anthony Collier, from Texas, from Maynard, Texas, which is a small country town near Austin going towards Houston. I went to undergrad at Texas Southern University. The illustrious TSU is a HBCU out in Houston, the same school that Barbara Jordan graduated from. I was also there with Megan Thee Stallion. We were there on the yard at the same time. And so it was a great time at TSU for sure. I'm a first generation college student. And so I've been really blessed. God has ordered my steps. Afforded me the opportunity to get a world-class education, not only at Texas Southern, but also at the University of Texas School of Law, where, I had a full tuition scholarship and where I was able to gain some leadership experience. And the funny thing about my position as general counsel to the dean of the Texas Senate, right? That was my first job out of law school. And the way I got the job, I had a couple job offers. I wasn't sure which one I should take, but one of my job offers, they were like, you need to make a decision now because we got to get the ball rolling. And it was a pretty good opportunity, I suppose. It was a Tuesday, and I was like, just give me a couple of days to pray on it, to seek God, to ask some people who are wise that I could get some advice from. And they were like, we'll give you till Friday. So I prayed on it and I asked God for guidance and direction. Proverbs 3:6 says, acknowledge him in all your ways and he'll direct your path. So I look up and I have a missed call from the dean of the Texas Senate. I call him back. I'm like, hey, sorry, I missed your call. He's like, oh, I didn't mean to call you. It was a pocket dial. Well, I have you on the phone. Let's talk. And during that conversation, he offered me the job. Then he gave me a raise and a promotion and made me not only his general counsel, but general counsel to the Texas Senate Committee on Criminal Justice. And some people are like, how in the world did you get those prestigious positions right out of law school? And I will reply that sometimes God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And my time there and the experience that I had there is what made me eligible for this national position with the Urban League. The Urban League wanted to expand in the state legislatures to work on criminal justice reform nationwide. Since there's so much gridlock in Congress, they're looking at getting laws passed on the state level. And so me, having that experience and working and getting some laws passed in Texas, I qualified for the job and I got it by the grace of God. So here I am.
Amen. Oh my God, I'm so proud of you and I'm so happy for you because, being right out of law school, and I'm sure that, especially being as young as you are, that's a lot to take on. Apparently you were ready for the job.
Yeah. Yeah, I was blessed, man, for sure. And it was a lot of work. It was a lot of hard work, but by the grace of God, I was able to get it done. And we were able to accomplish some incredible things in Texas. Like during the 2021 legislative session when I was still in law school, because I worked throughout law school as well. We got a ban on chokeholds passed and duty to intervene legislation passed. That's the law in Texas right now. It's illegal for police officers to put people in chokeholds, and they have to intervene if they see a police officer committing a crime against a citizen. And Texas is very red. It's not easy to get criminal justice reform passed there, but we were able to get that done.
Oh wow! So, how did your journey in the justice field begin?
It started with Trayvon Martin. I've always kind of had a heart for justice. I grew up as a small child listening to a lot of Tupac because of my uncles. My uncle listened to so much Tupac, I thought he was Tupac when I was little. Like until I saw, and he would rap Tupac so much, and he knew word for word. Until I saw, like, I think the California Love music video was on, and I was like, that ain't my uncle. Who is that? So I had a lot of Tupac lyrics ingrained into my heart and into my mind, and some of it is a little problematic, but a lot of it is also because his mom was a Black Panther, his aunt was a Assata Shakur, who's on the FBI most wanted list. So he was also instilling some knowledge and a heart for justice in me as well. But it was so it was kind of already in me, laying dormant, and but it was really when George Zimmerman got away with killing Trayvon Martin. Not even when he killed him, but when he got away with it. When they acquitted George Zimmerman, boy, I was hot. I was so mad. I probably dropped a couple of tears. I was like, this cannot be happening. And I remember I got on Twitter and went on this rant where I was just tweeting up a storm. And afterwards, I was like, well, that didn't do nothing. That didn't really help. I got to like do something about it, right? And so when I ended up on the campus of Texas Southern University, TSU is an activist school. Like so many great activists have walked that campus, and they've always been immersed in the struggle and the civil rights movement in Texas. And so TSU really like developed me into an activist. And if you go on my LinkedIn page and my featured content, you'll see some of the protests that I was involved in, that I organized, and some of the wins that we were able to get, like getting the body camera policy changed in the city of Houston, which is the fourth largest city in the U.S. We were able to get body camera policy implemented there, but also organizing a protest in front of the state trooper who pulled over Sandra Bland. They still had him on the payroll. We was like, no, we want him fired. Y'all not going to be paying him with our tax dollars. And we got him fired, and we got the Sandra Bland family, one of the largest, the largest settlement at the time in the history of Texas for a police brutality case, and a couple of other things. So like my activist career started with Trayvon Martin before I went to school, but when I got to school, I became like an activist, a participant, and then an organizer myself. And that's kind of how my journey started.
Well, as we got a question here that's in the chat, and it wants to know what about illegal search? Laws and legislations that you had passed. Did you guys do anything about illegal searches?
No, we didn't do anything about illegal searches, but no, but I mean we're all open to suggestions. If that's a law that you would like to see passed, you can feel free to shoot me an email and we can see what we could do about that. But my email address is acollier@nul.org. You can also find me on LinkedIn by searching Anthony Collier. And I'm all ears. We definitely want to make this nation and make this world a better place.
Well, I'll show that's one thing that's actually great, and I'm glad to hear you say that. Because our community have been so terrorized by law enforcement and a lot of this injustice that people aren't really comfortable. When it comes to policemen, and I know that you can't say that all policemen are the same. But when it comes to justice, they really don't do anything to make you feel comfortable at all, especially when you're not white. One of the there's something else I'd like to ask you this next question here. What was a defining moment in your career?
I think so a defining moment in my career, I would say, is when I was in law school. So like I try to pray every night before I go to sleep. And every morning when I wake up, I try to talk to God and I try to listen to God. And I'm not always as disciplined as I should be, but for the most part, I try to make some time, right? And this one particular night, I just felt so strong in my spirit. Call your aunt. And my grandparents had 12 kids on my mom's side, right? 8 girls and 4 boys. And so that's 7 aunts on my mom's side. Then on my dad's side, I have another 2 aunts. So I have 9 aunts in total. But it was like, no, I want you to call this particular aunt. And I was like, that's so strange. I haven't spoken to her in forever. Like, I was like, I'm gonna go to sleep, and if I wake up in the morning and still feel that way, then I'll call her. So I wake up the next morning, same thing. Call your aunt. Call your aunt. I was like, that is so odd. I was still disobedient. I texted her. I didn't call her, and I said, hey, aunt, so and so, you've been on my mind. I just want to check on you and see how you're doing. She responded back immediately and said, "Can I call you?" Question mark. And I was like, "Okay, let me go ahead and call my aunt and see what's going on." Right. So I call her. She answers the phone, bawling, crying. Right. I'm like, "What in the world is going on?" Come to find out, her daughter, which is my first cousin, is missing, on the run from the police. Her two children, which is my aunt's grandbabies, have been taken by Child Protective Services. It's been weeks. They won't return her calls. They won't return her emails. She don't even know if her grandbabies are alive, and she's distraught. Like, she don't know what to do, right? But this is how God works, and this is why it was a defining moment for me. I was in the legislative lawyering clinic, which means at law school I was working in the Senate, and so
Oh,
I was in a position to help her. There's no way she could have known I was in a position to help her. There's no way I could have known she needed my help. But God saw her tears and heard her prayers and decided he was going to answer her prayer through her nephew. So I go to work immediately. That same day, I get them to call her back. We get her grandbabies out of foster care, and they're living with family members right now. And that was a defining moment because that showed me, like, God, boy, God listens. You know what I'm saying? When we pray, God listens. And also that, like the Bible says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he'll show you which path to take. That's real. Like, if we acknowledge him in all our ways, he'll direct our path. And so I often I write down a lot of the things that God has done for me, and he's moved in incredible ways in my life. But sometimes I got to sit back and reflect on those things and remember and look at that, because, I mean, if he did it before, he can do it again, and it's just a reminder that he's with me and he's leading me, he's guiding me, not only me, but others as well, like my aunt or whoever else who is willing to seek him and ask for his help.
so at the National Urban League, let's say, like, they're with the underserved communities and some of the issues that they're having and so forth. What do you guys do to help those communities? Do you have programs that people need to learn about?
Can,
How do people
can you
get
repeat
into?
that? Can you repeat that question?
Okay, like when people in the underserved communities, especially a lot of our communities that can't afford legal representation,
Mm-hmm.
when they have issues that they need to get resolved, or if they need to contact somebody, do you guys at the Urban League have any kind of programs that people should know about or need to learn about that can help them with situations where they can't help themselves?
Absolutely. So we have a database of legal resources, free legal representation. So when people reach out to the National Urban League, and you can like I said, you can email me for this information, or you can add me on LinkedIn. We'll send them, like, depending on, and we're a nationwide organization, right? We got affiliates across the nation. So say you're in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, or say you're in Kansas, Missouri, or Kansas City, Missouri. We can refer you to legal organizations or lawyers in your area, in your city, who provide free legal representation, and we'll connect you with those resources. But we also we have expungement clinics. I think we have one in Texas, we have one in Ohio, where we work to get people's records sealed. If you're eligible, we can get your records sealed so that you won't be discriminated against when you're applying for a job. And so that's just a couple of the ways that we help. We also help people get information to get housing, to get jobs. So a wide range of ways. But yeah, we are a service organization, and we do try to help vulnerable communities.
Well, one thing, I think to help that along, let me just ask you this: would it be possible that once I can gather, I have your information, that I can actually learn about those programs that you just mentioned, or some of the things that you guys do for assistance, and I can actually do a post on my blog for that? Would that be cool? Or
Yeah, sure.
uh,
Yeah, that's fine. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I think that, to get that information out, I think it's really pertinent, because I know there's a lot of people that would be needing some kind of assistance in some shape, form, or fashion.
Mm-hmm.
What challenges do you see in the current justice landscape?
Um, Challenges I see. Well, I'll say this. One challenge that I see in California is police officers. Well, this is nationwide, but California is where we're targeting. So, like, police officers pulling people over for driving while black. So basically, you might have air freshener hanging from your rearview mirror, and they'll use that as a. But you're black, so they'll use that as a pretextual reason to pull you over. Or you might have one tail light out, or you might commit one minor traffic infraction. And so there's a law that I designed while I was in law school called the SMART Act. It stands for Stopping Meaningless Altercations Regarding Traffic Stops, and it will prevent police officers from pulling people over for minor traffic violations, which is really just a ruse to get you for driving while black, right? And when I got when I got to the National Urban League, and as I was like studying the landscape of criminal justice reform nationwide, I stumbled across Senator Bradford, who has filed a version of the SMART Act in California. And so we are planning an advocacy day at the California Capitol in conjunction with Senator Bradford and our Urban League movement out there. We have four Urban League affiliates out in California, in Sacramento, in LA, in the Bay Area, and in San Diego. And so we're having an advocacy day at the Capitol where we're bringing the Urban League movement to descend on the Capitol, where we're going to have a press conference, a rally, but we're also going to have an advocacy day training where we're going to teach our volunteers how to advocate for this legislation. Then we're going to go to the legislative offices and advocate for this legislation. We're going to write op-eds in the news. We're going to have a whole campaign to try to get this bill over the hump because it has momentum. 2 sessions ago, he filed it. It died on the first day, but last session, it died on the last day. But the catch is Senator Bradford is term limited. So this is our last good chance to get this bill passed. So our president and CEO, Mark Morial, and I will be traveling to California actually next week to have some preliminary meetings. And then March, we're coming back with the full force of the Urban League movement to have our advocacy day and to get this bill over the hump.
Oh man, we may need to cover you guys while you're traveling out to California.
Feel free, come out for the advocacy day for sure. Yeah, that would be great.
How does the Urban League contribute to justice initiatives?
We create justice initiatives. Like one is trying to get the SMART Act passed. Another one is in Texas. We're trying to get so in Texas, 66% of the prisons and detention facilities don't have AC units. And the reason why in the living quarters, and the reason why this is so egregious is because a lot of these buildings are very old. They're made out of metal and concrete, and it's hot in Texas, right? I'm from Texas. I know when it hits 100 degrees outside, it can hit at 130 in those prisons. People are literally baking to death. So this summer alone, between June 1st to August, 135 people died in those prisons, likely due to heat-related illnesses. And even before this, because this was a historic, because of climate change, this summer was the hottest summer in the recorded history, right? And so, but even before this summer, Texas was 30 times the national average for deaths in prisons, likely due to heat-related illnesses, to heat strokes and other matters. And so this is clearly a violation of the Constitution of cruel and unusual punishment. Because some of these people are innocent. Some of these people are only in jail waiting for a trial date. They haven't even been convicted. But even if they are guilty, they were not sentenced to death. They were not sentenced to bake alive in a prison. And so we're coming to Texas. We're also having an advocacy day in Texas to try to get this funding for these AC units. We also have wrote a letter to the Department of Justice, to the Attorney General, also to the Congressional Oversight Committee, the Judiciary Committee, the House and the Senate Judiciary Committee, calling for an investigation into the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to go to Texas in person, and we're going to advocate to get AC units in these prisons.
Oh wow! So tell me this: have you guys thought about in the process of the initiatives and going to Texas and so forth? Has there been anything pushed forward to actually hold the governor, Greg Abbott, responsible for any of these issues?
We haven't done that, just only partly because this is something that has been going on since before Greg Abbott. So it's kind of like it's something he's inherited. Now he could have done more to change it, but I mean Texas has been around. Texas was his own country before he even joined the U.S., right? And they've had prisons for a long time. So it's kind of like a collective problem, not necessarily the governor's problem. But now that he's on notice, I think that he needs to be held accountable. But it's really the lieutenant governor who's at fault here, because the governor can't sign it in the law until the House and the Senate passes legislation in the budget, really, to fund the AC units. And it passed in the House, bipartisan. Republicans and Democrats said this is wrong. I think it passed by unanimously in the House to get they allocated $535 million to put AC units in these detention facilities, but it died in the Senate under the control of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. He has a lot of influence, and he's like the president of the Senate. He has a lot of influence, and sometimes he holds progressive legislation hostage, so as a bargaining chip to get his conservative agenda passed. And so this may be one of the things that died in that civil war, as they were like bargaining over what's going to pass and what's not going to pass. So I think the lieutenant governor is actually more at fault than the governor. And I'm no fan of Greg Abbott. I'm just being objective here, that the lieutenant governor may be more at fault. And so, but it has bipartisan support. It has momentum. And I believe with the Urban League's help, we can get this passed, and we can get AC units in these prisons.
Oh man, I'll tell you. See that this is one of information I want to let you know and let our audience know that I'm definitely going to be on top of trying to get this information that's needed, because I need to make sure I get it out. But also, I'm going to make sure I try to get those dates that you're talking about when you guys are going to be going out to California.
We'll be there March 12th and March 13th.
Which one is that?
Well, this is for the advocacy day. The advocacy day is at the Capitol. The rally, and
that's California.
Yeah, that's California.
Okay,
that's what we'll
March 13th is Texas.
Texas will be in Texas on February 6th. Tuesday, February 6th, we'll be at the Capitol in Austin, Texas.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely need to get that out, because we definitely need to cover that story. Tell me, in your opinion, what is the Justice Department's most pressing concern?
The Justice Department's most pressing concern, I think, it's too many Black people being murdered by police. I think that Black men and women, especially our brothers, being murdered by police, being over policed, and I think the Justice Department needs to do something about that. I think that Joe Biden has done some movement on that. So we have this thing called 21 Pillars at the National Urban League, and it's basically like 21 suggestions for criminal justice reform. And he's implemented some of them. Like, one of the things that we wanted to see happen was an outright ban on chokeholds and duty to intervene. And Joe Biden has issued an executive order to do that. And so he has been responsive. He has been listening. He has been acting. Also, we call for a database to report police violence and misconduct. And he's also, issued an executive order to handle that, and that's great. But but we still need Congress to act, because President Biden only has authority over federal agents, over federal law enforcement. But a lot of the times, it's state and local police who are killing us. Like, for example, you remember Sandra Bland? That was a state trooper. So this executive order wouldn't have covered Brian Encinia, who's the state trooper who pulled over Sandra Bland. That's something that the Texas government would have to legislate, unless Congress came in and passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which will cover all law enforcement, including state and local. And so that's something that Congress has to do. Biden can only do so much. Or the Justice, and by Biden, I mean the Justice Department, right? Because they're under President Biden.
Okay. I have a question here that's in the chat. It says, do you feel because of the illegals, having immigrants coming across the border is one reason the government isn't trying harder to get AC in those prisons?
No. No, I don't.
That's definitely cruel, right?
Yeah, that's fascinating. For one, I would say that I'm a proponent of people first language, so I wouldn't call them illegals. I would call them people who are trying to enter the country, or maybe even migrants. But illegals, that's kind of charged language, I would say. But I don't think that that's why. Honestly, I think that if the House and the Senate passed legislation to get fund AC units in the prisons, I think Abbott would sign it. I think he would. I think he would support it. I think it's just the problem is getting it out of the Senate. And the reason why the lieutenant governor has been holding it is not because of people crossing into the country illegally. It's because every year in the every Texas legislative cycle, the House and the Senate has a civil war, and it's a civil war because this Republicans. The thing about Texas is, and this is why it's so hard to get bills passed there. This is why it was so historic for us to get a ban on chokehold and due to the intervening legislation passed there. The House, the Senate, the lieutenant governor, and the governor, they're all Republicans. Like Texas, the Texas legislature is dominated by Republicans. And so instead of them fighting against Democrats, they're fighting against each other, right? It's the moderate Republicans versus the ultra conservative Republicans. And so Dan Patrick is one of the ultra conservative Republicans, and he's using funding for AC units as a bargaining chip to get his like super ultra conservative agenda passed. So he's basically playing politics with people's lives. It has nothing to do with the migrants. But thank you for your question.
So tell me this, just to to delve a little bit deeper into this. Let's just say, I understand, where you guys have got the ban on the chokeholds, and you're trying to get some other things handled as to, for as far as policing. What suggestions do you have for our brothers and sisters, for this time going forward, how to deal with some of these issues, and what do you suggest that they do?
I think you should get involved. I would love for you to get involved with the National Urban League. More than likely, we have an affiliate in your city. If we don't, you can create one. We're working on getting an affiliate built in Dallas, Texas, also in San Antonio, Texas, and a couple of other places. We already have one in Houston and Austin. And of course, we have affiliates everywhere nationwide. We have with several in the state of New York, one in New York City, in addition to the National Urban League where I'm at. So I suggest you get involved with your local Urban League affiliate. For example, Mr. King, what city are you based in?
I'm here in Metro Atlanta. Well, Atlanta.
So yeah, Atlanta has an Urban League affiliate, one of our stronger chapters as well. So if you're in Atlanta, I would say join the Atlanta affiliate, right? And you can get involved locally there. And with Atlanta being in Georgia, Georgia is one of the swing states, and so we'll be doing some reclaim your vote work. So I'll be in Georgia at some point, Lord willing. If not in Georgia, maybe in one of the other swing states. But the National Urban League will be in Georgia. I'm pushing to be in Georgia because I want to go to Atlanta. I don't want to be in Iowa or New Hampshire. Like I want to be where my people at. So I'm asked to go to Atlanta, but it's not up to me. It's up to Mark Moriel and where he wants to send me. But so yeah, we'll be in Georgia, but yeah, so join your Urban League affiliate, but not just the Urban League. You can join your local NAACP. Some instant AACP chapters like Urban League are more active than others, depending on what city you're in. They might be more dynamic. But if they're not doing the work you would like to see them do, I encourage you to join the organization and bring your ideas to the table. For the NAACP, it's a lot easier for you to exert your will because it's volunteer based, right? You can run for president. You can go and recruit a bunch of people. They pay their $35 and join. You come to the meeting with your votes. You the president, like it's just straight like that, and it's your agenda, so you can get what you want to do. The Urban League is a little different because you get paid, and the president and CEO of a local affiliate gets paid very well. They up to like $200,000, and so you got to get hired for that. You can't just run up in the meeting and get elected, right? There's a board where you have to be interviewed and you have to be vetted by the National Urban League. So I would suggest you join your NAACP, join your Urban League, and get involved in that way. And if you join your local affiliate and there's something that you want to do, reach out to me and I'll see how the National Urban League can partner with you and try to help you make it happen.
I like that. How do you balance advocacy and your legal responsibilities?
I don't have any legal responsibilities. I'm full-time director of criminal justice for the National Urban League, so I'm all policy. I'm doing all policy, and so which is great because there's a lot of work to be done, and I have a lot of different projects that I'm working on, And like the beautiful thing about this and why this is such a blessing for me is that when I was in undergrad, this is the type of stuff I did for free. In addition to going to school, and you know, studying and writing papers and being on the debate team, traveling for tournaments, I would organize. I would work on criminal justice reform. I would speak out against police brutality. So now, on a local level in Texas, I was a organizer for the Houston NAACP. I also worked for the Texas NAACP. I did a lot of work in undergrad. And now to get paid to do this full time, and I don't got to worry about turning in a paper or going on a debate tournament, because I had a scholarship for the debate team, so I wasn't trying to miss my tournament so I could get that scholarship money. This is a dream come true. So this is what I do full time. This is my life, and I love it.
Man, this is a dream, and I just got to say that again, how proud I am of you, and that is that you've actually given this opportunity being given to you. You've more than taken advantage of it, but you've just taken it on and you've taken it by the reins, and it's yours. It's yours. This is what you're a perfect example of what I think most young men that want to do things like what you're doing, when they don't see it or see somebody that looks like them, this is where they start to have some issues. And so having you on the show is just wonderful. And I just hope that, all of the things and the knowledge that you're dropping here today, that not only it continues, but it makes a difference.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. All glory to God. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here.
Can you share a success story from your time at the Urban League?
Yeah, I think that for one is the Biden coming out with that executive order to ban the chokeholds straight out of our 21 pillars. Mark Morial, our president and CEO, he meets with presidents all the time. One funny story he had about meeting with Obama. Well, it's not about Obama. It's really about his staff. They were just walking on eggshells and pins and needles because they were so conscious about how it was perceived. They were just shell shocked. They were like, "What is Fox News gonna say about Obama meeting with, Mark Morial and the National Urban League?" Like they were, and they were I guess, kind of trying to be discreet about it. And so, it's Mark Morial and then it's the president and the ACP, and they're like, "Look here, young fella, let me tell you something. This your first time in the Oval Office. This not our first time in the Oval Office. We done met with several presidents. We know how this goes. Just let us handle the media, and you sit back and you can learn something." Because they forget, like, before you, they were meeting with Bush. Before him, they were meeting with Clinton. Before Clinton, they were meeting with Bush. Like, this is like, just because you new to the Oval Office don't mean they're new to it, right? So I just thought that was funny because it was true, and it's something I hadn't thought about before. But so Mark Morial, of course, is in contact with President Biden. And they've seen the 21 pillars, and in addition to other civil rights organizations, and they listen. And so a lot of those executive orders that Biden has put out is directly from grassroots organizations, bringing that to the table and them listening. But I just started with the National Urban League in September. And so it's just mostly been a lot of planning. We're going to start implementing now. Like my first activation really is going to be next month in February, and then my second one in March. And so, Lord willing, I have more victories, as I get the ball rolling. But I really just got here.
Oh wow! I expect that, and I'm sure that that's going to happen.
Thank you.
What role does community engagement play in the justice reform?
That's the biggest key. That's the lifeblood of it. If I heard a quote that said that if you don't speak out when you're being oppressed, your oppressor will say you enjoyed it. So advocacy is key. You gotta speak out. You gotta let your voice be heard. I actually attended a protest today with Al Sharpton regarding the president of Harvard, the first Black woman who's president who had to resign. And it's because the architect of the assault campaign against her, Bill Ackerman, is also the architect of dismantling diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he's trying to hide behind the anti-Semitism, which is a real thing, right? But he's trying to hide behind that and use it as a shield to attack civil rights, to destroy everything that our ancestors have been fighting for, and we're not gonna fall for it. Like, we see through the disguise, we see it for what it really is: racism, sexism, bigotry. And so I think that a lot of the time, sometimes protests get a bad rap because some people be like, well, what did the protests really accomplish? I tell you what, protests are about raising awareness, making sure that the issue stays in the news cycle, stays in the media, and brings energy to a situation. Like, for example, I'll give you an example of something I did in Houston when I was an undergrad. So the Houston Police Department, their body camera policies, it had the capacity to capture a full 2 minutes leading up to when the officer pressed the button. So say a police officer turned his camera off, slapped you upside the head, then turned it back off and was like, oh, my camera misfunctioned, so we didn't catch it, right? Or, and this is something that they've done before, turn the camera off, plant evidence on someone, turn it back on and say, I found drugs on them, right? So with that, the body camera had the capacity to capture a full 2 minutes. So if they did that, we would catch you. But they were only operating at 30 seconds, right? And so we were like, no, we need that full 2 minutes. And the catalyst of it was a man by the name of Alton Sterling was shot to death by police in Third Ward, Houston. Third Ward is where Beyonce is from. That's like the heart of the city, you know. That's where Texas Southern University is. That's so that's why I became a man out in Third Ward. So shot him down. But they turned the camera off, so we didn't get to see, you know, what led up to it. So we like, no. So we had a protest. We pulled up the city hall with the I had the Black Panthers out there. I had students from Rice, students from the University of Houston, students from Houston Baptist. I had any organization you can think of. We pulled up. We was deep, and we basically like, we would not stand for this, and we raised a lot of awareness for it and built a lot of pressure with that protest. And we actually went to City Hall and shut it down, and we got it passed. We got them to update their body camera policy. And Mayor Sylvester Turner, that was his first year. He was just term limited, so he's no longer the mayor there, but he's only the second Black mayor in Houston history. He listened to us and he implemented the policy. So protesting can be very effective when you use it the right way. And so and those are that's the type of advocacy that is necessary, and the type of advocacy I plan to continue, but now on a national scale instead of just, you know, locally in Houston or in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow. Man, I can't wait for that. That's awesome. How can individuals contribute to positive change in their communities?
Yeah, so you got to be informed. Definitely vote. I'm not one of the people who just tell you just vote and that's it, because that's not it. That's not all. You definitely need to vote and register to vote, but you also need to join your local organizations, join your local urban league, join your local NAACP, and show up and also bring your ideas. A lot of you have great ideas, and some people will look at their NAACP or their urban league and they'll say, man, they never do nothing. Well, that's because they waiting on you. They need you to come in there and bring your ideas, and you do it. You lead the political action committee. And then next thing you know, you'll be the one leading the charge, and they'll be behind you. Next thing you know, you'll be the president. That's how I got started. When I was a student at TSU, remember I told you I was so upset about Trayvon Martin tweeting up a storm? When I got to campus, I met a brother by the name of Derek Muhammad, and I'm a Christian, right? But this brother is a Muslim, but he's still a great friend of mine. And I asked him just the same question you asked me. I asked him. I was a freshman. He spoke on a panel. I was like, how can I get involved? How can I give back? Because I was so passionate about what I saw happen to Trayvon Martin. He said, just show up. He said, all you got to do is show up. You hear about a protest, you hear about it, get informed, then show up. And he said, next thing you know, you'll go from attending the protest to organizing the protest. And he proved prophetic in that. I just showed up, got involved, started asking. I didn't come in like trying to lead anything. I came in trying to serve. Like, how can I help? What do you need? You need me to, sign people in. You need me to pass out waters. You need me to hold the megaphone. Like, whatever y'all need, I'll do it. And then, and he was right. Next thing you know, I was organizing them, because it's like the Bible says, he who is greatest among you will be your servant, right? True leaders are public servants. And so you don't go in looking to lead, but go in looking to serve. And next thing you know, you will be leading.
Wow. How do you see the future of justice evolving?
I think that one thing I think we got to be cognizant of is artificial intelligence. That's one way the justice system is going to evolve for sure. And so we got to keep an eye on that, because artificial intelligence basically compiles data from all around the world, right? And there's a lot of racism, right? White supremacy is worldwide. And so what we've been noticing is they've been creating racist robots, where like these robots will in like simulations will racially profile black people, because that's how they've been programmed through everything that they've learned throughout the data. So we got to be careful when police officers are using like this facial recognition technology, and they'll be like, well, this computer says you did it, but you were actually innocent, and you were racially profiled by artificial intelligence. So we got to keep an eye on that. We got to make sure Congress is heavily regulating that, and ensuring that they're not allowing that type of racism to seep into the artificial intelligence. So I think that that's something, as far as how the justice system will evolve, that's something that we have to keep a close eye on.
Well, just as you mentioned that, it was like maybe 2-3 weeks ago, I was in the barbershop, and that story came on early in the morning on CNN, where there's this facial recognition software that's being used in a lot of states, and it's basically like it's just wrong in what it's doing, because it's like taking the facial recognition, and it's basically pinpointing a lot of different black men and women, and they're being attacked, of course, by the police, and they're being arrested, and come to find out it's been falsely done because of the AI, because the AI is not ready.
Yep.
This particular situation was done here. The guy created this face recognition software is here at Georgia Tech, and he said that he told them that it wasn't ready because it was racist.
Mm-hmm.
And they said it was ready, and they used it anyway.
Because they like, we racist too, so that's fine.
So I'm like, that is crazy. But you're right about that AI, because that's why a lot of people are just not really comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we gotta keep an eye on that, brother.
How do you address intersectionality in your work?
Yeah, the National Urban League is all inclusive. So regardless of your gender, your sex, your race, or your beliefs, we think everybody deserves, a seat at the table. We don't necessarily believe in equality in outcomes, but we do believe in equality of opportunity. Everybody should have a chance. And so, I think that everybody's voice deserves to be heard, and the most marginalized and vulnerable communities should have a seat at the table and should have a voice. I know that there's a trans women are like discriminated against heavily, being murdered, being brutalized, and people are not speaking up about that. And I think that that's tragic, and that we need to stand up for the most vulnerable, right? And be the voice for people who don't necessarily have the power to speak for themselves. So I think that the National Urban League is about that, and I'm personally about that as well.
Well, that's what this show is about. Those that don't have a voice, that's what it's for. And I want to be the part of that platform that gets out to everyone and let them know that they've always got a place here.
That's right.
And so I have a question here in the chat that wants to know, what is the Urban League doing about the book banning of the authors in the state of Florida?
Yeah, that's terrible. They doing that in Texas too. Now, as far as the National Urban League, I'm not sure, because it's not in my wheelhouse. I'm the director of criminal justice. There may be somebody in the Urban League who works on education. We do have people who focus on education policy. They will better be able to answer that, but I honestly don't know. I imagine that we're doing something about it, especially our local affiliates in Florida, for sure. But that's not in my wheelhouse though, because I can only do so much. My hands are already full with what it is I have going on. But if there's something that you're passionate about, I would love to support you in any way I can, and I would love to help you organize or brainstorm on how and even connect you with the local affiliates out there who I'm sure are already doing their work that can support you as well, and y'all can work together.
Okay.
But that's a great question though, and that's egregious, and it's something that we definitely need to speak out against.
What strategies do you employ to navigate legal challenges?
I leave that to the experts. Like I say, with legal challenges, there's always like a two-pronged approach, right? And this is something that Thurgood Marshall understood too. You have the protest outside, but you have the legal fighting in the courtroom, right? So like it's similar with like Brown v. Board of Education. Like for example, the reason why Texas Southern University exists is because there was a brother by the name of Heman Sweat, right? And he was a fraternity brother of Thurgood Marshall. They were alphas. But Heman Sweat was accepted to the University of Texas School of Law in Austin, right? And this was in like the 40s, late 40s, early 50s. And they looked at his application on paper and they was like, wow, this is an impressive individual. Of course you can get into our law school. So he shows up first day of class and they're like, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, I'm Heman Sweat. They was like, oh, you're black. Yeah. They was like, yo, black boy can't come to this law school. Like, are you crazy? And he was like, but y'all admitted, he was like, we didn't know you was black. Like, we didn't know a black person could be this smart and write this well. And so and so they said you can't come here. And so he sued, and Thurgood Marshall was his lawyer. But it wasn't enough to just sue. There was also protest in the streets, right? There was to build that public pressure, that public awareness campaign, to where the judges know we can't just sweep this under the rug. If we don't rule, they still got to follow the rule of law, but they can't just blatantly mess us over and say we don't care what the rule of law is. This like clearly. They were like, okay, we have to follow the letter of the law here, or it's going to explode, right? And so you got the protest in the street, but then you also got Thurgood Marshall, who's one of the most brilliant legal minds of all time. So he comes in, right, and sues the state of Texas. And this is Sweat v. Painter. The reason why it's called Sweat v. Painter is because Sweat is Heman Sweat, right? And so, but Thurgood Marshall was his attorney. And this is also where separate but equal comes into play. And so the Texas legislature was like, oh, we see where this is going. We're going to create a separate but equal institution of higher learning. And so there was the Houston Community College for Negroes in Houston, right? They built that into a university, what is now known as Texas Southern University. And then they gave them their own law school, which is now the Thurgood Marshall School of Law. It's named after Thurgood Marshall because his lawsuit is what created it. And so they was like, we're going to give them a separate but equal law school and build a university around it. That's how we got TSU. But Thurgood Marshall won the case, and they were like, yeah, it's cool that y'all built this HBCU, but you still got to let Heman Sweat go to the University of Texas, right? And it's really poetic justice because I went from Texas Southern University in undergrad to the University of Texas School of Law, and I was elected student body president. It was really like poetic justice because it's like you had to give us an HBCU, and you still got to let us go to your law school. So it was a beautiful full circle moment. But I don't think that happens without the activists on the ground, without the protesting on the ground. It's the same thing with the civil rights movement, right? How with the Dr. King's advocacy, we got the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the Fair Housing Act, right? LBJ is not able to get that legislation passed if not for Dr. King and the sisters with him who was marching and advocating on the ground. So you need both. You need people in the streets. You also need people in the legislature. You also need people in the courts. It's a full, everybody has a role to play in this movement.
Well, just you mentioned those law schools, don't forget University of Michigan did the same thing as University of Texas. And they had one of those cases a few years ago, just recently again, where they were trying to keep the black kids out of their law school at University of Michigan.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that Michigan is also another elite law school. It's a very highly ranked, and it's criminal to try to keep black people out because those are state schools, which means our tax dollars are funding those schools. Exactly. And so if our tax dollars are funding those schools, we should have the right to go there. Now, we choose to go to an HBCU instead. That's our choice, but it's our choice. You're not going to tell us that we can't go here when our tax dollars are funding the school.
Yeah. Yep. And again, another thing about that, you were talking about Texas Southern and Thurgood Marshall. Just recently, because I was looking at going to law school. Texas Southern was one of the schools that I called to check on because I was trying to find out if they had one of those online programs because I really wanted to get into law school, but
Man, come on down to TSU, my brother. It's a beautiful campus. It's beautiful.
They-
It's in the heart. It's in Third Ward, Texas. And
yeah,
man, if you decide to apply there, let me know because I'll introduce you to some folks, and we'll make sure that once you get to Houston, you taken care of. It's a great school. It's an
yeah,
HBCU. It's rooted in activism, and yeah, man, I think that's a great. That'd be a great law school for you to go to.
yeah. Because the one was that Al, what's his name? One of the congressmen from that area.
Al Green, he went to TSU Law School. Yep.
Yes, he's actually a part
Yep.
of the school, so forth. I saw his name on the website.
Also, Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia. She also went to TSU Law.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay. Well, what's this question here? Let's see. Texas, in Texas, the Republicans controlling both the House and the Senate. How is the Urban League combating this to get your agenda heard?
It's a great question. And it takes a lot of finesse and a lot of political acumen. But basically this is how it works, right? So within the Republican Party, you have the ultra conservatives, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have then you have the far right, then you have right, then you have the center right, and then you have the moderates. And
Right.
so the way to get progressive legislation passed is you have to build a coalition with the libertarians.
Mm-hmm.
The libertarians in the Republican Party are, if you're a libertarian, that means you've gone so far to the right that you've come back left on criminal justice reform. Like it's like they don't believe in anything. They're like all about liberty. So they don't like the police either because they're infringing upon our rights. Like we're all about liberty. And so we build a coalition with the libertarians. So we get the Democrat minority, we get the libertarians, and then that gives us enough votes to pass legislation. So that's how we got ban on chokeholds and duty to intervene passed in the House. In the Senate, we were able to convince Dan Patrick to come on board. But that's how we get most criminal justice reform passed in Texas. It's really the only way because, like you said, they have all the numbers. So we have to be strategic.
Can you share a personal lesson you've learned in your journey?
Sure. Let me think about that. I've learned that when leading, especially when leading our people, you have to lead with love. You have to be patient because our people have been through so much. Oftentimes, it's almost like if someone's drowning in the ocean and you try to save them, right? And this is something I think I first heard from Malcolm X. They're gonna fight you. Arms gonna be flailing. They might hit you upside the head. They might try to pull you down with them because they fighting for their life, right? And here you are trying to save them, but you're getting beat upside the head. And if you're not careful, you might end up drowning with them. You gotta have strong legs to lead our people. You got even going all the way back to Moses, like they was giving him hell in the wilderness. Go back and read Exodus. Like even back then, he was like, "This is a stiff-necked people." And that's how we are. And Black people in the U.S., we are stiff-necked people, and we also been through 400 years of enslavement here in the U.S. So there's a lot of similarities. But you got to be patient. You got to lead with love because there's been a lot of trauma, and you can't take it personally. Like when they come for you, when they attack you, and you have to keep the moral high ground. You have to lead with integrity because if you're a Black leader, they coming for your head. They looking for anything they can find, any dirt in your past or whatever. And nobody's perfect, so they'll probably find something. But if you have a track record of standing up for your people, when those allegations come forth, they gonna ride with you. Look at Dr. King, like right. And I'm not saying he stepped out on his wife or not. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not gonna take the word of the FBI because COINTELPRO and J. Edgar Hoover said that his job is to assassinate the character of Black leaders, and if that don't work, he assassinates them, right? And so he tries to neutralize their character, and then if that don't work, he neutralizes them. I think that's why Farrakhan is still alive today, and why he wasn't assassinated like Dr. King and Malcolm X, because they successfully neutralized him, right? they've assassinated his character so much, he's seen as an anti-Semite. They don't even let him on TV no more. What they got to kill him for? They already assassinated his character. So I would say, but I say all that to say, when those allegations came out about Dr. King, Black people still roll for him, and we still rob for him to this day because of everything he did for us, and because he had a heart for the people. And so that's what we got to. That's how we have to be. We got to lead with integrity. We got to lead with love. We got to lead with patience.
And can you give some advice to our audience for aspiring advocates in the justice field?
Sure. I'll tell you, like Derek Muhammad told me, show up. Show up to your NAACP meetings, show up to your Urban League meetings, community meetings, just show up, protest, whatever it is, show up, know what's going on, get involved, and contribute on how you can help. You might not have time to, based on your job, to be at everything, but the things that you can be at, you should be at. And as you continue to show up and get involved, eventually, you might be the ones organizing, you might be the one leading it, but we need your voice. It's going to take all of us to get out of this. It's like Dr. King used to say, we might have all arrived in different ships, but we all on the same boat now. And we can row together as brothers and sisters, or we can drown together as fools. And so it's going to take each and every one of us to do it. And I will also say that, remember that those who are greatest among you will be a servant. And so don't go in thinking that you have to be the president or you have to lead or anything. It's okay to, to support somebody else, to lift them up. And if you continue to do what you're supposed to do and lead correctly, eventually you will be called to lead. Now, there is a caveat to that, right? Because there is some discrimination, there is some sexism, there is some colorism. And so if that's the case, you might have to work a little bit harder to reach the top if that's your ultimate goal. But I would just say, yeah, just show up, contribute, and organize.
And we have one more question for you, sir, because I don't want to take too much of your time, but this last question is, how do you envision the impact of your work on future generations?
That's a great question. I think I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. I hope that that I make a difference. I hope that when I'm dead and gone, people say that I gave it everything I had, that I fought hard every day for the advancement of my people and for marginalized communities. I want to leave this world better than I found it. I want it to be a place where we don't have to have the talk with our sons about a police officer murdering them, about them not making it home because of that. We don't want to have our daughters worrying about they can't find a Black man to marry because all of our Black men are in prison or in jail, So I think that, just one thing I'm really passionate about is investing in the young Black men. And so in Houston and in Texas, we have this thing called the Black Male Summit. And it's about, because so many of us, like I said, at one point, one in three Black men were being sent to prison. That's 33%. And so that's terrible, And so, I just want to give back. So many people poured into me. Like I said, I'm a first generation college student. My dad and my stepdad were both incarcerated when I was coming up. And so it's a miracle that I'm here today, but it's because some brothers in the church stepped up to mentor me. It takes a village to raise a child, and I can never pay them back, but I want to pay it forward by giving back to the next generation. So I want to be known as someone who gave back, who invested into my people. I want to be known as somebody who put more brothers on in the NBA. Like, I'm trying to lift everybody up, and sisters, with the WNBA. So that's what I want to be known as, someone who gave back, someone who lifted up, and someone who inspired others.
Well, I definitely appreciate you coming onto the show, and dropping this knowledge, because I think it's something that our people definitely need. I will tell you also, as I said, stated, I've actually wrote down those dates, but I'll be contacting you more because I definitely want to cover those stories that you spoke of earlier, and going to both California and to Texas State Senate. But I hope that this is not the last time you come to the show, because we definitely would love to have you back. And everything that you put out today has been just nothing but fruitful, and we all appreciate it. and I have to give you your hand because you did that. And again, I'm proud of you, and we will definitely be supporting you, and I know I will anyway, because I want people to learn a whole lot more about you, and I will be putting you on the national stage because I will be blogging about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm happy to come back. And when we're the National Urban League is in Georgia, I hope you will connect with the National Urban League there. Hopefully, I'll be there too. But like I said, that's up to Mark Moriel. So hopefully, I'll get to see you in person in Atlanta.
Yes, sir. I'm sure Mark will make that happen because I've been down there to the Urban League. They used to do those business classes in the evening. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if they still do that, but yeah. And so I'll definitely be going down there. And I want to thank you for your time again. And this has been a great show, and we'll see you the next time.
Sounds good. God bless you.
All right, thank you, sir.